I can't remember exactly who sent me this story, but if you are listening, shout out to you because you will recognize this story more than anybody. But this man's name, well, first off, this story is coming out of New Jersey, where you have this man by the name of Christopher Walls, who was a 19-year-old veteran who has been suspended because he got caught allegedly, you gotta say allegedly, but he got caught running a meth lab out of his home. And you want to know what's so crazy? Every time I hear a story about a meth lab for some reason happening in the more northeastern states, such as like New York and stuff like that, it's always in some kind of New Jersey, PA area. I've noticed that. That's just something that I've noticed. But here you have a guy who's been on the force for 19 years, and he's been running a meth lab in or out of his home. And the thing is, it gets worse than that, but I'm going to go ahead and let the story tell itself. Prosecutors in New Jersey say a 19-year veteran police officer has been arrested and charged for allegedly running a meth lab out of his freehold home. Christopher Walls, an officer with the Long Branch Police Department, has been charged with half a dozen criminal offenses, including possession, manufacturing meth, and endangering the welfare of a child. He's since been suspended without pay from the department. Monmouth County prosecutors announced the 50-year-old was at his home late Saturday when Long Branch police were called for reports of a domestic disturbance. Once officers arrived, a resident of the home reportedly told them that Walls was involved in illegal drug activity. The New Jersey State Police Hazmat Unit was called to the home and discovered materials, chemicals, and instruments consistent with methamphetamine laboratory in the basement in a shed of the property, prosecutors said. The investigators also determined that Walls had books related to making meth, explosives, and poison, they said. Well, it's crazy because meth is a poison, and if your meth lab goes up in smoke, it can explode. So he literally had a 3-for-1 special going on in his home. And luckily, none of the three, actually happened, because the meth lab explosions are no joke. Them things can literally destroy homes, multiple homes, because that's nothing but dealing with chemicals. Officers on the scene Saturday night also recovered a stash of weapons left in open and unsecured safe. Prosecutors said 2 long guns, 4 handguns, 8 high-capacity magazines, and lots of ammunition were reportedly recovered. That's where the part of the endangering a child came into play, because they said that the guns were not stored in a safe. They were just out in the open, like anybody could just walk up, grab one, and pop one off, including his son. And then, of course, on top of that, his son was in a drug-induced environment, which was this meth lab. The officers in our agency risk their lives daily to protect and serve our residents. It is disappointing beyond measure that one of our officers could have risked the safety of his family and neighbors by engaging in such dangerous conduct. This officer's actions do not reflect the moral compass of our officers or this agency, acting Long Branch Police Chief Frank Rizzuto said. Walls faces decades of prison time if convicted. I think I read somewhere that said he could face up to 60 years. If convicted on the charges filed by prosecutors in Monmouth County. He was being held Sunday at the Monmouth County Correctional Institution pending a detention hearing. Contact information for his attorney was not immediately known. He does not need a bond. It doesn't say anything about him having a bond, which is good. So that means that no one can put money on his books, and he cannot bond out of jail for his activity. But I can't help but look at the kind of snide smirk on his face, as if he's just proud of what he was doing. I want to know, who was he manufacturing the meth for? Because, follow the paper trail. Like, who was his customers? Because, it could lead back to some of the people that he was working with in the department. I wouldn't be surprised. And the thing is, this isn't surprising, because you have a lot of people who are in law enforcement who will steal stashes of drugs off of criminals. And then when they're trying to look for in evidence and there's nothing there and it's missing, all you got to do is look at who was the arresting officer. And that usually will tell you who it is right there, because they're the ones who had first dibs on those drugs. And they're going to do one of the two things with them, with one of three things. One, they're going to distribute it. Two, they're going to use it. Or three, they're going to use it to pin on another person who is innocent to get them locked up on some bogus charges. One of those three is going to happen, and all three of those things have happened over time. And usually the person, when it comes to pinning the drug on somebody, it usually is always a black person, especially a black male. Remember a couple years ago in Baltimore when they thought they had turned off their body camera and they got caught dropping the bag with cocaine in it, and they dropped it, and you saw them drop it, and then they went back and said, "Oh, we found this." Like, they do stuff like that all the time. Like, them drugs that they get, they either get it from other drug dealers or they get it from off of the criminals, and then they use it and they kind of recycle it to continue to pin those drug charges on other people. But still, I would like to know who he was distributing to. At least they standing by their words, because, you know, they say that we, when it comes to these drugs and these stuff like that, and these hard narcotics, we want to put charges on the people that distribute. And they kept saying that they will send to jail who's the distributor. Now, I'm not sure what he's actually going to get, but like I said, I read somewhere else where it said he was going, like, he could get up to 60 years. Let him get all 60, because let's not forget, he was running an illegal meth lab out of his home while being a cop, and he had his child around with guns out in the open, and who knows how many of those guns are actually registered. So let's take away the fact that this guy had a meth lab in his home. His child was there and could have grabbed a gun and either the boy could have accidentally shot himself, or he could have shot his dad, or he could have shot into the meth lab and it could have exploded and they both die, and then it'll be other casualties because the neighbors would have got affected by it as well. So this guy's literally living a rock star life while pretending to live a very quiet one. And those are the ones they say you always got to look out for, is them quiet ones. I don't know if he's quiet or not, but he was definitely making a lot of noise in his basement for sure. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.